Coming in at number 2 is the Chicago Cubs, who may have even challenged the Orioles if it weren't for the graduation of PCA. Nonetheless, they have impressively bolstered this farm system through outstanding drafting and development. When looking at the top farm systems in all of baseball, historically they all share one thing in common. There's usually a bunch of high-end draft picks. Looking at the Orioles farm system, Jackson Holliday was the first overall pick, Heston Kjerstad was the second overall pick, and at one point both Colton Cowser and Grayson Rodriguez were high first-round picks. Going back in time a little bit, this is exactly how the very same Chicago Cubs acquired their own elite pool of young talent. Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, Kyle Schwarber, and Albert Almora Jr. were all pieces to an elite level farm system, and they were all high first-round picks, with Bryant and Schwarber specifically being top 5 selections. Now, I'm not bashing any of these teams for their high-end draft picks, but I'm just saying, it's typical for a high-end farm system to consist of many high-end draft picks. This is what makes what the Chicago Cubs have done so impressive. Without the benefit of a top 5 pick in the draft, or even multiple picks in the top 10, they've built an extremely great and deep farm system through excellent drafting and development. This video will dive into the prospects, how the Cubs acquired them, and what happened over the course of their Cubs tenure to get them to the spot they are today. But before we get on to this video, could you guys please hit the like and subscribe button? Currently, only 3% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if y'all do, not only would it help me grow my channel, but it also encourages me to create more videos like this one for you guys. And without further ado, let's get on to the video. The first player that I want to do a dive into is Crow-Armstrong, and I know that he doesn't technically count as a prospect since he just graduated a couple of weeks ago, but he's so new to the scene that I want to do a deep dive on his profile. Armstrong was drafted 19th overall to New York Mets, who then traded him for half a season of Javier Baez and Trevor Williams at the 2021 trade deadline. I initially liked the trade for the Cubs at the time, and it appears to be an even bigger win for the Cubs, as PCA has thus blossomed into a potential future star in the making. When the Mets traded Armstrong, they initially believed that his lack of a long-term power outlet would hamper his overall ceiling as a player, making him a defense-first center fielder / leadoff hitter with no more than 10 home runs a season. However, since the Cubs acquired him, PCA has shown himself as a complete 5-tool player that the Mets overlooked at every step in the minor leagues. Armstrong has showcased an above-average power tool that has not mitigated his elite-level contact and speed abilities. His 2022 season was encouraging, where he hit .312, .376, .520 with 16 home runs and 32 stolen bases. But this was against the lower levels of the minor leagues, and it would be seen in 2023 if he could produce that same level of production in the higher levels. Well, it's safe to say that he could produce, hitting a combined .283, .365, .511 with 20 home runs and 37 stolen bases across 107 games in Double and Triple-A in 2023. This uptick in power, despite facing steeper competition, has led to some scouts believing that his power tool could lead to 20 to 25 home runs a season at the major league level. Combining that with a Gold Glove caliber defense and blazing speed, and PCA could be a very valuable contributor no matter what facet you look at the major league level. Next up, we have the only prospect that was acquired via a top 10 selection in the MLB draft in Cade Horton, who was drafted 7th overall in the 2022 draft. I remember this selection when it happened, and I was in particular not a fan of it, after I put them in the losers category in that winners and losers draft. After all, why would you draft a pitcher this high who posted a 7.94 ERA during the college baseball regular season? And I know that he pitched excellent in the Big 12 tournament, but that could be due to a small sample size. Well, it turns out in that tournament, Horton implemented a use of a new slider in which the Cubs saw as a plus pitch, and pulled the trigger knowing that his slider was the key to his success in the future. Since then, it has worked wonders, and Horton is now a top 5 pitching prospect in the game. Last year, Horton used that revamped slider to strike out 117 batters in 88 1/3 innings in Single-A all the way up to Double-A, and has looked like a completely different pitcher than the one who posted an ERA above 8 just a year prior. Props to the Cubs here for recognizing the changes that led to Horton's success and delving hard into those changes to further his development and confidence as a potential ace-level starting pitcher for the Cubs. Matt Shaw is another one of those prospects in which you could argue was taken with a premium selection, selected 13th overall in the 2023 draft. During the draft process, Shaw was taken as someone with no real visible holes in his game, who played about average defense and was a pretty smart base runner. During his short time period following the draft, however, Shaw displayed every bit of that complete game, hitting .357, .400, .618 for a 1.018 OPS in 38 games between rookie ball and Double-A, also hitting 8 home runs and stealing 15 bases. This season, though, Shaw has struggled with strikeouts in Double-A, leading to an underwhelming OPS of .730. However, the advent of an increased walk rate, nearly triple what it was last season, has opened up a new approach to his game as a more complete hitter. It is yet to be seen what Shaw will do long-term. Naturally, he's a second baseman or shortstop, but with Swanson and Horner there long-term, he's more likely going to have to play third base, in which I think his arm is not really suitable there. Nonetheless, he's a great all-around hitter who could be still a valuable contributor even when he's playing out of position. Owen Cassie is my favorite prospect in the Cubs organization, and he was drafted by the Padres in the second round before being traded in that offseason to the Cubs as part of the Yu Darvish trade. Now, Cassie was by no means the main part of that trade, and at 18 years old, more closely fit the lottery ticket type of prospect and someone who could pan out into something, but more often than not becomes an afterthought when they historically look back on this trade. Well, Cassie so far has looked like the piece in the trade that the Padres would definitely love to have back. Known as an elite power hitter with a surprisingly good walk rate and defense for a guy of his profile, Cassie first put himself on the map when he hit 302, 434, 489 between single A and high A as an 18 to 19-year-old in 2021. And following a down year in 2022, Cassie supplanted himself as one of the best prospects in the entire game in 2023 by hitting 289, 398, 519, and 120 games in AA, also hitting 22 home runs and 31 doubles. So far this season, Cassie has continued his monster production, with an on-base percentage above .410 and slugging above .430. Cassie will be an extremely valuable hitter for the Cubs, whether at the DH position or in the corner outfield. His ceiling is 35 to 40 home runs, while also walking a ton and keeping a high on-base percentage. His comp here is Kyle Schwarber, but with better defense. And if Owen Cassie kind of represents the lottery ticket type of prospect in the Yu Darvish trade, then Kevin Alcantara definitely is one in the Anthony Rizzo trade. Signed by the New York Yankees at 16 out of the Dominican Republic, Alcantara was then traded for half a season of Rizzo as a raw prospect oozing power potential at 19 years old. 3 years later, Alcantara has since blossomed in one of the top players in the 2018 signing class. Originally known for his light tower power at 6'6", Alcantara has turned into a more balanced hitter, using the opposite field more in return for less power. Nonetheless, he still has the potential to be a 30 home run hitter for the Cubs. In the minors, Alcantara has hit at every level. Outside of his 17-year-old stint with the New York Yankees, Alcantara has never posted an OPS below 810, and 2023 was his best season yet, moving all the way up to AA while hitting 13 home runs and stealing 15 bases. Despite already playing 5 minor league seasons, Alcantara is only 21 years old and still needs more time to simmer to unlock his true potential. But his 6'6" frame alone is enough to generate optimism that he could be the next O'Neal Cruz, James Wood, or other power-hitting type behemoth as a prospect. Every elite level farm system has had that diamond in the rough, a player who is selected not in the first round that ends up being one of the best players in the entire farm. For the Orioles, it was Gunnar Henderson, for the Padres, it was Luis Campusano, and for the Astros, it was Lance McCullers. For the Cubs, it could be James Triantos. Drafted in the second round by the Cubs in 2021 as a third baseman, Triantos initially drew comps to Alex Bregman and Nolan Arenado because of his elite bat-to-ball skills. However, although his power has not developed in tandem with those skills, scouts still believe that Triantos could be a 20 home run hitter as he develops. Right now, his bat-to-ball skills are still there. He's never hit below 270 in any of his seasons in the minor leagues and has progressed up the minor league ladder nicely over that time period, remaining consistent. And although you wish he would walk a little bit more, and his defense at third was a bit spotty so they had to move him to second base, his elite contact abilities supply Triantos with a nice floor to build power off of to become a more complete player. Going even further back in time, another player drafted in the second round, but this one in 2018, is bounce-back prospect Brennen Davis. Since being drafted out of high school as an 18-year-old, Davis has had a long and tumultuous 6 years. At one point, Davis was considered the top prospect in the Cubs organization, making it all the way up to AAA at only 21 years old and winning the All-Stars Game Future MVP in the process. However, injuries, setbacks, and underperformance in both 2022 and 2023 left him off the Cubs' top prospect list entirely going into this season. However, 2024 may have just saved his career and regenerated renewed optimism about his long-term place going forward. Davis is finally healthy and producing in AAA. In 37 games, Davis has hit 250, 424, 519 for a 943 OPS and 8 home runs and 108 plate appearances. Ready to join the majors at any time now, the most encouraging part of his game has been the plate discipline and power when he does connect. He reminds me a lot of a right-handed hitter, Owen Cassie, ready to unleash the ball if he wants to, but willing to take his walks and pass the baton off to the next person. Him and Cassie in tandem for the Cubs in a few years could be a scary proposition, with a lot of 2-run home runs. We've talked a lot about the top prospects who were either drafted or traded for, but there's still one important aspect that we haven't covered: international signees. Teams like the Padres specifically excel in this field, and sometimes international signing periods are just as valuable as the draft. So how have the Cubs fared in this department? The Cubs have had their fair share of signings over their recent history, with some of them even knocking on the door of the major league team. However, for the most part, their top prospects are still in the lower levels of the minor leagues and need more time to be evaluated, but that doesn't mean I can't break them down. For starters, the youngest and possibly the highest ceiling of the international signees is Fernando Cruz. Signed for $4 million out of the Dominican Republic, Cruz has all the makings of a five-tool shortstop with great power. However, he's only 17 years old, and there will need to be a lot of time and at-bats in the minor leagues before Cruz can display those talents at Wrigley Field. In fact, Cruz was actually an anomaly in that the Cubs spent most of their signing money on him. Typically, the Cubs would dish out portions of their signing pool to a multitude of prospects in hopes that one of them would pan out. And that seems like that strategy worked in back-to-back years, with the acquisitions of Moises Ballesteros and Jefferson Rojas. Ballesteros is 20 years old in AA and has played catcher, first base, and DH. A left-handed hitting bat with amazing bat-to-ball skills and good power, Ballesteros' highest ceiling will come if he remains at catcher, in which his bat will carry him to be one of the top 10 hitting catchers in the game. As a catcher, his bat is well above average, but likely less so for a DH/first base position. As a catcher though, his technique needs refining, but at 5'7", 195 pounds, he has the profile to be a good blocking catcher with an at least average defensive arm. If he can't remain at catcher, his profile remains a little bit less enticing. And as for Jefferson Rojas, he's a talented shortstop prospect who can remain there or play third base. His bat still needs some work, his swing can be a bit long at times, leading to strikeout issues and inconsistent contact. However, he's only 19 years old and has a ton of time to iron out his kinks and tap into that raw power he possesses, complementing his good eye at the plate. So from these last prospects, it can be seen that the Cubs have made savvy trades, have had elite drafting over the past couple of years, and have also been decent on the international signing market. But one thing has been overlooked in my opinion, and that has been their ability to develop players. This is shown through two relievers, who are now top prospects in the Cubs organization, whose careers were almost over before they even started. Michael Arias may be the biggest hats-off prospect in the entire organization. He was signed initially by the Blue Jays for only $10,000 and then released entirely by them in 2020. He was picked up for free by the Cubs in 2021, where he may now be the nastiest pitcher in the entire system. His fastball sits in the mid to high 90s with heavy sink and a vicious slider that tunnels excellently with the fastball, particularly great against righties. His last pitch is a changeup, which is used as his out pitch against lefties. All of this is thrown from a low arm slot to generate deception among the first time through a lineup, making him an incredibly effective reliever. At only 22 years old and in AAA, Arias has all the makings of the Cubs' future closer for the time being, and his past starting experience could also give the Cubs flexibility with his ability to go multiple innings. The last reliever and player that I want to highlight is Porter Hodge, who just made his major league debut for the team and has been impressive, striking out 6 batters in 2 1/3 innings of scoreless ball for the Cubs. Drafted in the 13th round in the 2019 draft, Hodge already faced a ton of adversity just to get to the major leagues, and in a way is a lot like Arias. From a profile standpoint, Hodge deploys a mid to high 90s fastball with a quick delivery that makes it look a lot like a 100 miles an hour fastball, despite it being only 95. He also deploys a sweeper that remains a plus pitch and a curveball. Just like Arias, the Cubs were able to recognize his potential as a reliever and turn what really was a scrap of a draft pick into a valuable piece for the major league club. So overall, the Cubs have built a great and deep farm system through every way a team can improve: trades, drafting, and international signees. Looking at how the Cubs assemble this team, I can pick out 2 main lessons learned for the future teams looking to develop their systems. For starters, when looking at players in the draft, it's often the process that matters more than the results. Cade Horton represents a perfect example as to how numbers don't mean anything. There were countless other players who had ERAs in their collegiate season that were lower than Horton, but the process that Horton undertook to improve his arsenal is what gave the Cubs optimism in order to draft and develop him. The other lesson here is that the throw-in lottery ticket prospects are still valuable, especially when the team acquiring them have a great development squad. These young lottery ticket prospects can often be overlooked because they're such a long ways away before reaching the major league squad. However, it's often these pieces that prove the most valuable at the end, and they deserve to be focused on as much as the veterans that they are being acquired for. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, if you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below new video ideas. This is a team-focused video, which is a lot different than the overarching videos that I've done recently. So let me know if you guys like this one, or if you want another team for me to do on. Next, I'm thinking about doing the Baltimore Orioles rebuild, and just covering that one like I did the Braves. But if you have a different team, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.